The mate bond snapped into place the moment Alpha Cade's eyes met mine across the ceremonial circle. But instead of claiming me, he spoke the words that would destroy my world. I, Alpha Cade Blackthorn, reject you as my mate. The air left my lungs. Time stopped. The silver moonlight that had blessed our ceremony suddenly felt like it was burning through my skin. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not after everything I'd endured to get here. The ceremonial circle was packed with wolves from 3 different packs. The lunar ceremony only happened once a year, and every unmated wolf over 18 attended. I'd watched it from the sidelines for the past 3 years, waiting until I turned 21. Waiting for my turn. Waiting for hope. When the bond hit me, that golden thread connecting my soul to his, I'd actually gasped. Alpha Cade Blackthorn, the strongest alpha in the Northern Territory. Dark hair, steel grey eyes, a presence that commanded respect from every wolf in the region. And for 3 beautiful, perfect seconds, I felt him. Felt the recognition, felt the pull between us that was supposed to be unbreakable. Then his face hardened. "You're too weak," Cade continued, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Every wolf heard him, every single one. "An Omega. You'd be an embarrassment to the Blackthorn bloodline. I won't have a Luna who can barely shift without exhausting herself." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not kind laughter. The cruel kind that I'd heard my entire life. My wolf whimpered inside me, curling into a ball of pain. The rejection physically hurt, like someone was tearing my chest open with silver claws. I pressed my hand against my heart, trying to breathe, trying to stay standing. Cade. His name came out as a whisper. I didn't even know I'd spoken until I saw his jaw tighten. "I accept your rejection," I forced out, "because that's what you were supposed to say." The words that would sever the bond completely. The words that would free us both. Except it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like dying. The bond snapped. Actually snapped, like a rope pulled too tight. Pain exploded through my body and I stumbled backward, catching myself before I fell. I wouldn't fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. "Thank the goddess that settled," Sienna Frost's voice cut through the crowd. She stepped forward, beautiful in her ceremonial dress, her red hair gleaming in the moonlight. She was everything I wasn't. Strong, confident, from a powerful family. "Cade needs a real Luna, not some broken Omega who can't even protect herself." The pack laughed again, harder this time. I searched the crowd for my family. My father stood with the other pack elders, his face carefully blank. He wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother had already turned away, disappearing into the crowd. My older brother Marcus just shook his head, like I'd disappointed him. Again. They were ashamed of me. I'd known I was different my whole life. Weaker, slower to shift. My wolf was smaller than she should be, paler, while other wolves in the pack trained and fought and proved their worth. I'd spent my childhood getting knocked down, literally. The pack's children had used me for practice and the adults had let them. "Learn to be tougher," they'd said. "This is for your own good." But it hadn't made me tougher. It had just made me tired. The ceremonial ground started to spin. The pain from the severed bond was getting worse, not better. My legs felt weak. I needed to leave. Needed to get away before I actually collapsed and gave them all another reason to laugh. I turned to go, but that's when I felt it. A flutter, low in my abdomen. So faint I almost missed it beneath the agony of rejection. My hand moved to my stomach automatically, and suddenly I couldn't breathe for an entirely different reason. No, not now. Not here. 2 weeks ago felt like a lifetime. The pre-ceremony celebration had been wild, unmated wolves from different packs mixing, dancing, drinking the ceremonial wine that was supposed to help us open our hearts to the bond. I remembered music, laughter, and then golden eyes, a voice that had wrapped around me like silk, strong hands pulling me close, whispered words I couldn't quite recall. I'd woken up alone in the forest clearing, fully dressed but disoriented, and convinced myself it had been a dream. Too much wine, too many nerves about the ceremony, nothing real. Except it had been real, and I'd been too scared to admit it, even to myself. The pack doctor had called me in 3 days ago for a routine check before the ceremony. She'd looked confused, running the tests twice, then 3 times. "This can't be right," she'd muttered. "Omega wolves don't. You shouldn't." She'd told me to come back after the ceremony, said we'd figure it out then. But I'd known. Deep down, beneath all my denial, I'd known. The flutter came again, stronger this time, and with it, an impossible warmth. Not one heartbeat. 2. Twins. Omega wolves didn't carry twins. Our bodies weren't strong enough. It was biologically impossible according to every piece of wolf lore I'd ever heard. Single births were rare enough for omegas. Twins simply didn't happen. Yet here I was, standing in the ceremonial circle, freshly rejected by my fated mate, with 2 lives growing inside me that shouldn't exist. And I had no idea who their father was. "Get out of here, Omega," someone shouted from the crowd. "You're ruining the ceremony for the real wolves." More laughter, more jeers. Cade had already turned away, his arm around Sienna. They were laughing together about something. Probably me. The pack was moving on, eager to watch the next bond form, to celebrate the wolves who actually deserved their mates. I backed away slowly. One hand still pressed to my stomach. No one noticed. Why would they? I was just Isla Winters, the weak Omega, the disappointment, invisible except when they needed someone to mock. The tree line was close. If I could just reach it, I could shift and run. Get back to my tiny room in the pack house, lock the door, figure out what to do. But as I moved, I caught a scent on the wind. Something familiar. Something that made my wolf suddenly lift her head, despite the pain we were in. Cedarwood and night rain. Wild and primal and somehow mine. I spun around searching the crowd, but there were too many wolves, too many scents mixing together. I couldn't pinpoint the source. "Looking for someone?" The voice came from behind me. I whirled to find a man standing at the edge of the tree line. He hadn't been there a second ago. He was tall, broader than Cade, with dark hair that looked almost black in the moonlight. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Golden eyes. The same golden eyes from that hazy night 2 weeks ago. Recognition slammed into me. Not the mate bond. That had been severed, destroyed. This was different, deeper. Like my soul knew him, even though my mind couldn't quite grasp the memory. "You," I whispered. His expression was unreadable, dangerous. He took a step closer, and I saw the others notice him, saw heads turn, wolves tense. He carried himself like an alpha, but there was something else, something that made even Cade pause in his celebration and look over. "We need to talk, Isla," the stranger said quietly, "before they figure out what you're carrying." My blood went cold. "How do you—" "Not here." His eyes flicked to the crowd, then back to me. "They can't know. Not yet. You're in more danger than you realize." "I don't even know who you are," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't entirely true. Some part of me knew him, recognized him in a way that had nothing to do with memory and everything to do with instinct. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. Close enough that his scent wrapped around me and made my wolf keen with something that felt like longing. "My name is Riker," he said, "and those twins you're carrying? They're mine." Chapter 2. I had 3 hours before the pack would discover I was pregnant, and when they did, they'd either kill me for bringing shame to the Silver Moon name, or worse, keep me prisoner to use my miracle twins as pack property. Riker's words still echoed in my head as I stood frozen at the edge of the ceremonial grounds. "Those twins you're carrying, they're mine." Before I could respond, before I could demand answers or call him a liar or ask him how he possibly knew, the pack elder called for attention. The next bonding was about to begin. Wolves shifted around us, movement and noise providing cover. "Meet me at the old oak near the eastern border," Riker said quietly. "Midnight. Don't tell anyone. Don't trust anyone." His golden eyes held mine for another heartbeat, and then he was gone, melting into the shadows between the trees as if he'd never existed. I stood there shaking, one hand still pressed to my stomach where I could feel that impossible flutter. The twins. His twins. My mind couldn't process it. Couldn't reconcile the hazy memory of golden eyes and whispered promises with the reality of a stranger who somehow knew my deepest secret. But I didn't have time to think. The ceremony continued around me, bonds forming and breaking, wolves celebrating and mourning. I used the chaos to slip away, heading back toward the pack house with my head down, trying to be invisible. It was a skill I'd perfected over the years. My room was small and sparse, tucked in the Omega wing where the pack kept wolves who weren't quite valuable enough to warrant better accommodations. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, finally letting myself feel the full weight of what had happened. Cade had rejected me, in front of everyone. The pain hit fresh, like the bond was being torn apart all over again. My wolf whimpered, still curled in on herself, still hurting. But beneath that pain, beneath the humiliation and heartbreak, something else stirred. Something that felt almost like anger. I pushed off the door and started moving. I couldn't think about Cade right now, couldn't think about Riker or his impossible claim or any of it. I needed to focus on one thing: survival. I pulled my old backpack from the closet and started packing. Clothes, practical ones. Nothing fancy. My mother's silver locket, the only thing she'd given me that felt like love instead of obligation. The small amount of money I'd saved from my Omega duties over the years, cleaning, serving, doing the grunt work no one else wanted. It wasn't much. Maybe enough for a week or two if I was careful. A knock on the door made me freeze. "Isla," my brother's voice. "Marcus." "I know you're in there." I shoved the backpack under my bed and opened the door. Marcus stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable. He was 2 years older than me, strong and capable, everything our parents had wanted in a child. Everything I wasn't. "Are you okay?" he asked, but his tone suggested he was asking out of obligation rather than actual concern. "I'm fine," I lied. "Dad wants to see you. He's not happy about what happened tonight." Of course he wasn't. I'd embarrassed the family, failed to secure an advantageous mating, been publicly rejected by the most powerful alpha in the region. Just another disappointment to add to the list. "Tell him I'll come by tomorrow," I said. "I need to rest." Marcus studied me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Pity, maybe, or guilt. "Mum said you should have known better than to hope for someone like Alpha Cade. She said we should have prepared you for reality." The words stung, even though I'd expected them. "Is there anything else?" He shifted his weight. "Sienna and Cade are announcing their official engagement. There's going to be a celebration at the pack hall. You should probably stay away from that." "Thanks for the advice," I said, and started to close the door. "Isla," Marcus caught the door. "Are you sure you're okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," I repeated harder this time. "Just tired." He let go of the door and I closed it in his face, locked it again, waited until his footsteps faded down the hallway. Then I pulled out the backpack and continued packing. The celebration would be my cover. Everyone would be at the pack hall, drinking and laughing and celebrating Cade's engagement to the woman who actually deserved to be Luna. No one would notice one Omega slipping away into the night. I had 3 hours. The pack hall was lit up like a beacon when I crept past it 2 hours later. Music and laughter poured from the open windows, Through the glass, I could see Cade standing at the center of the room, Sienna at his side. She was radiant in a silver dress, her hand on his arm, her smile victorious. He was smiling too, but something about it looked wrong, forced. I turned away before the sight could hurt me any more than it already did. The eastern border was a 20-minute run in wolf form, but I couldn't risk shifting yet. Not with pack guards on patrol, not with my wolf still weakened from the rejection. So I walked, keeping to the shadows, my backpack heavy on my shoulders. The old oak stood at the edge of our territory, its branches spreading wide and ancient. I'd played here as a child, before I understood what being an Omega meant, before the other wolves had started treating me like something broken. Riker was already there, leaning against the trunk like he'd been waiting for hours. In the moonlight, he looked even more dangerous than he had at the ceremony, bigger, more predatory. His golden eyes tracked my approach with an intensity that made my wolf stir, despite her pain. "You came," he said. "You know my secret," I replied, stopping a safe distance away. "That doesn't give me much choice." "It gives you more choice than you think." He pushed off the tree and moved closer. I fought the urge to back away. "You can stay here and let them discover the truth. Let them use those twins for whatever purpose serves the pack best. Or you can come with me and learn what you really are." "I know what I am. I'm an Omega, the weakest wolf in the Silver Moon pack. The disappointment who just got rejected by her fated mate." "No." His voice was quiet but firm. "You're something else entirely. Something they've kept you from understanding your whole life." "How would you even know that?" "Because 2 weeks ago, at the pre-ceremony celebration, you and I shared more than just a night together." He took another step closer. We shared a bond. Not a mate bond, something older. Something that doesn't require ceremony or moon blessings. And when we did, your wolf recognized mine. She knew what you were, even if you didn't. My heart was pounding. "You're not making any sense. I'm a moonborn alpha, Isla. We're rare, nearly extinct, and we can only create bonds with certain wolves, ones who carry ancient bloodlines, ones who've been hidden away and suppressed and told they're weak when they're actually the opposite." "That's insane, is it?" He gestured at my stomach. "Omega wolves can't carry twins, everyone knows that. Yet there they are, 2 heartbeats, 2 lives, impossible unless you're not actually an Omega at all." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, shaking my head. "No, I've been tested. My wolf is small and weak and—" "Suppressed," Riker interrupted. "By food, by training, by constant conditioning that told you who you were supposed to be. But suppressants don't work forever, and pregnancy accelerates the breakdown. Those twins are going to wake up your real wolf, Isla, and when they do, everyone in that pack is going to know the truth." "What truth?" My voice came out as a whisper. "That you're a true Luna, a bloodline so rare that most wolves think it's just a myth, and that every alpha in the territory is going to want to claim you and your children the second they realize what you are." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was too much, too impossible. "I don't believe you," I said, but the words felt hollow. "Then stay," Riker said simply. "Go back to that pack. See what happens when they find out about the pregnancy. See if I'm wrong." We stood there in the dark, the distant sounds of celebration carrying on the wind. Inside me, the twins fluttered again, stronger this time, like they were responding to their father's presence. Warning howls suddenly split the night. My head snapped toward the sound. The border guards. They'd seen me. "Decision time," Riker said. "Stay or run." My wolf made the choice before I could. She surged forward, demanding freedom, demanding escape. I felt the shift beginning, but it was different than before. Wrong. My bones started to crack and reform, but power flooded through me, hot and wild and terrifying. My eyes burned, and when I caught my reflection in a nearby stream, they were glowing gold instead of amber. The guards were getting closer. I could hear them crashing through the underbrush. "Run," Riker ordered. "I'll hold them off. Head south. Don't stop until you hit human territory." "But go!" I ran. My wolf burst free, and she was faster than she'd ever been, stronger. The forest blurred around me as I raced through the territory, crossing the border just as more howls erupted behind me. The pack knew I was running. They'd send trackers, hunters. I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, I collapsed outside a cafe in Ashwood, a human city 200 miles from Silver Moon territory. The journey had been a nightmare. My money ran out after 5 days. The pregnancy had progressed at an impossible rate. I looked 4 months along, even though it had only been a few weeks. The twins were strong, their heartbeats constant and demanding. But they were draining me. Every shift took more energy. Every mile felt like 10. I travelled through neutral territories, avoided wolf packs, stolen food from human convenience stores when I had to, slept in abandoned buildings and under bridges, kept my wolf suppressed as much as possible because every time she emerged, my eyes flashed that terrifying gold, and I moved with a power that I didn't understand and couldn't control. I'd researched in a human library, using their computers to search for information about supernatural pregnancies. What I found terrified me. Accelerated gestation, development at 3 times the normal rate. The twins weren't due in 9 months. They'd be here in 3, maybe less. And I was alone, weak, running out of options. The world tilted as I tried to stand outside the cafe. My vision blurred. I felt myself falling, felt the pavement rushing up to meet me, and then strong hands caught me. "Easy there," a male voice said, gentle, concerned. "I've got you." I tried to focus on his face but couldn't. Everything was spinning. "Pregnant," I managed to whisper. "The baby's—" "Shh, don't try to talk. I'm going to help you." He lifted me easily, like I weighed nothing. Through my fading consciousness, I registered things about him. The way he moved, too gracefully for a human. The faint scent of old magic clinging to his clothes. The protective wards I could suddenly sense humming around him. "Not human," I whispered. "Neither are you, sweetheart," he replied. "Let's get you somewhere safe." I passed out before I could respond. I woke in a soft bed, in a room I didn't recognize. Sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains. The scent of herbs and protection magic filled the air. "Easy," that same gentle voice said. I turned my head to find a man sitting in a chair beside the bed. He was maybe 40, with kind eyes and dark hair threaded with silver. "You've been out for 2 days. Needed the rest." "Where am I?" "My safe house. I run a place for supernatural refugees, wolves, witches, fae, anyone who needs shelter, no questions asked." He smiled. "My name is Marcus Reed." "Isla," I said automatically, then winced. I shouldn't have given my real name. "I know," Marcus said calmly. "I also know you're running from something, and I know you're pregnant with twins, which shouldn't be possible for an Omega wolf." My hand went to my stomach defensively. The twins were there, heartbeat strong and steady, alive. "How?" "I have wards on this property that detect supernatural signatures," Marcus explained. "Yours is unusual, complex. Like there are layers to what you are that even you don't fully understand." He leaned forward. "Those twins you're carrying, they're not normal wolf pups, Isla. They're something more. Something powerful. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Or at least part of you does." He stood and moved to the window. "I've been doing this for a long time, helping refugees. I've seen a lot of strange things, but I've never seen a wolf with a signature like yours. It's old, ancient, like you're carrying a bloodline that was supposed to be extinct." Riker's words echoed in my head. True Luna. A bloodline so rare that most wolves think it's just a myth. "What am I?" The question came out broken, desperate. Marcus turned back to me, and his expression was serious. "I don't know exactly, but I know you're not who they told you you were. And I know that when those twins are born, the supernatural world is going to take notice." He paused. "The question is, are you going to be ready for that?" Before I could answer, pain lanced through my abdomen, sharp and sudden. I gasped, doubling over. Isla? Marcus was at my side instantly. The twins. Something was wrong. The heartbeats were stuttering, erratic. Magic flared around me, gold and silver light that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist. They're coming, I gasped. The babies. It's too early. They're only. Impossible gestation period, Marcus finished grimly. I was afraid of this. Your body is trying to protect them by speeding up the pregnancy even more. He helped me lie back. Don't worry, I've delivered supernatural babies before. You're going to be okay. But as another wave of pain hit, as the twins' heartbeats thundered in my chest and power I didn't understand flooded through my veins, I wasn't sure I believed him. 200 miles away, in Silver Moon territory, Kate Blackthorne stood in Isla's abandoned room, staring at the positive pregnancy test in his hand. The pack doctor had finally admitted the truth after days of pressure. Isla had come in for a checkup. She'd had unusual symptoms. The doctor had run tests and found something impossible. When was this dated? Kate demanded. Before the ceremony, the doctor said quietly. 2 weeks before. Before he'd rejected her? Before he'd stood in front of everyone and called her too weak to be his Luna? Something cold and terrible settled in Cade's chest. He'd felt empty since the rejection, a gnawing void that Sienna's presence couldn't fill. He'd attributed it to stress, to the weight of alpha duties, to anything except the truth he couldn't face. He'd made a mistake. Find her, Cade ordered. Send trackers, send hunters. I don't care what it takes. Find Isla Winters and bring her back. Alpha, the doctor said carefully, if she's pregnant with those twins. If what I think I detected is true, she might not be the Omega you thought she was. Cade's wolf stirred, uneasy and restless. What do you mean? The doctor hesitated, then spoke words that would change everything. I think Isla might be a true Luna, and if she is, Alpha Cade, rejecting her, may have been the biggest mistake of your life. Chapter 3. Your parents lied to you, Idler, Marcus said, sliding an ancient photograph across the table. You're not an Omega. You're the last surviving heir of the Moonfire bloodline, the original lunar wolves who ruled before the current Alpha system existed. I stared at the photograph, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold it. The image was old, faded, but clear enough. A woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to glow even in the stillness of the picture. She stood beside a massive silver wolf, her hand resting on its head. The resemblance was undeniable. She had my face, my bone structure, my eyes. That's not possible, I whispered. Look at the locket you're wearing, Marcus said gently. My hand went to my mother's silver locket, the one piece of jewellery I'd treasured my entire life. I'd never been able to open it. The clasp had always been stuck, and my mother had told me it was broken, that it was just a pretty keepsake with no real value. Marcus reached across the table and pressed the side in a specific pattern. The locket clicked open. Inside was a tiny portrait of the same woman from the photograph, and beneath it, engraved in letters so small I had to squint to read them, Lyra Moonfire, last Luna of the Silver Court. That's your grandmother, Marcus said. She died protecting you when you were 6 months old. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to ground myself, but nothing felt real anymore. The twins kicked inside me, stronger than before, as if they were responding to the truth. No, I said. My parents. They're my parents. They raised me. They... Found you, Marcus interrupted gently, at the Silver Moon Pack borders, wrapped in a silver blanket with only that locket. They were good people, Isla. They raised you as their own, loved you as their own, but you weren't born to them. Why would they lie about this? To keep you alive. Marcus pulled out another photograph, this one more recent. It showed a burning compound. Bodies scattered across the ground and wolves fleeing into the night. 25 years ago, the Moonfire bloodline was massacred. Every member of the family, every wolf who carried their blood. The official story was that they'd grown too powerful, that they were a threat to the pack system. But the truth is more complicated. He stood and moved to a bookshelf, pulling down a leather-bound journal. The pages were yellowed with age, covered in elegant handwriting. The Moonfire wolves were special, Marcus continued, opening the journal. They were the original lunar wolves, blessed directly by the moon goddess. They didn't follow the alpha hierarchy that modern packs use. They had their own system, their own power structure, and their abilities. He looked up at me. They could carry multiple births, twins, triplets, sometimes more. Their wolves were stronger than any alpha, and their mates weren't chosen by random chance or pack politics. The moon goddess herself selected their perfect match. My hand went to my stomach. The twins. The impossible twins that no Omega should be able to carry. You're saying I'm not an Omega because I'm Moonfire? You were never an Omega, Isla. Your parents, the Winters, they gave you suppressants from the time you were a child. Herbs mixed into your food, spells woven into your clothes. They kept your true nature dormant, kept you weak and small, because that was the only way to hide what you really were. But why? The anger came suddenly, hot and overwhelming. Why would they do that to me? Why would they let me suffer, let the pack treat me like I was nothing, when I could have been alive? Marcus said firmly. They did it so you could be alive, because the people who massacred your family are still out there. They're still in power. And if they'd discovered you were Moonfire, you would have died before your 10th birthday. The words hung in the air, heavy and terrible. I thought about my childhood, about being weak and slow and constantly bullied, about my parents' distant coldness, their disappointment in me. It hadn't been real. They'd been protecting me the only way they knew how, by making sure I never became important enough to notice. The twins, I said quietly, they're developing so fast because they're Moonfire heirs, Marcus confirmed. Your body is trying to bring them into the world as quickly as possible. It's a survival mechanism. The bloodline knows it's in danger, and it's racing to ensure the next generation survives. I looked down at my hands, at the slight silver glow that had started appearing on my skin over the past few days. I'd thought it was a trick of the light or a symptom of stress, but it was my wolf, waking up, breaking free of decades of suppression. There's more, Marcus said, and something in his tone made my stomach drop. Moonfire wolves only conceive when they've found their true mate, the one chosen specifically for them by the moon goddess. It's not like regular wolf bonds. It's absolute, unbreakable. Once the bond forms, conception is almost immediate. I thought about Cade, about that moment at the ceremony when I'd felt the bond snap into place. But I felt it with Cade, the mate bond. I felt it. No, Marcus said gently. You felt a bond, but it wasn't real. Someone manipulated you, both of you. He pulled out a small vial filled with dark liquid. This was found in the ceremonial wine from the pre-ceremony celebration. It's a rare potion, makes you suggestible, weakens your wolf's ability to recognize danger, and most importantly, creates a false mate bond with the first alpha you see after drinking it. My blood ran cold. Someone drugged me. Someone drugged the entire ceremony, Marcus corrected. You, Cade, probably others. They wanted to control who bonded with whom. They wanted you to bond with Cade, wanted him to reject you publicly, wanted you driven out of the pack before you could discover the truth about yourself. But why go through all that trouble? Why not just kill me? Because they can't, a new voice said from the doorway. I spun around to find a woman standing there. She was tall, elegant, with silver hair and eyes that looked ancient. She wore robes that shimmered like moonlight, and power radiated from her in waves that made my wolf instinctively bow her head. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice came out weaker than I wanted. "My name is Elena. I'm a moon priestess, one of the few left who still serve the goddess directly." She moved into the room with a grace that wasn't quite human. The Moonfire bloodline is protected by divine law, Isla. No wolf can kill you directly without facing the goddess's wrath, but they can manipulate you, drive you away, isolate you, make you vulnerable enough that when you die, it looks like an accident or natural causes. The rejection, I whispered. They wanted Cade to reject me because a rejected Omega, pregnant and alone, fleeing through dangerous territory. That's a tragedy, not a murder, Elena finished. No one would question it if you died out here. No one would investigate too deeply. The room felt too small suddenly, too hot. I stood up, needing to move, needing to breathe. The night I can't remember. The night the twins were conceived. If it wasn't Cade, then who? A flash of memory hit me, sudden and vivid. Golden eyes in the darkness, hands on my skin, strong, scarred hands. A voice whispering against my ear, "I'll find you when it's safe. Trust the moon." I gasped, gripping the edge of the table for support. "The memories are coming back," Elena said, moving closer. "The drug that suppressed your bond is wearing off. Your body is fighting to remember your true mate." Another flash, broader shoulders than Cade's. Dark hair that looked black in the moonlight. A scar that ran from his collarbone down his chest. Distinctive, like a claw mark that had never fully healed. "Riker," I breathed. Marcus and Elena exchanged a look. "You remember him?" Marcus said. It wasn't a question. "He was at the ceremony. He told me." I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to pull the fragments together. "He said the twins were his. He told me I wasn't what I thought I was. He knew?" "Riker Moonborn," Elena said softly, "the last surviving member of the Moonborn pack. He's been searching for you for 25 years, Isla, since the night of the massacre." "I don't understand." "Your grandmother, Lyra Moonfire, had a mate, a Moonborn alpha named Kale. They were bonded for 30 years before the massacre. When the attack came, Kale was away on council business. He came back to find his entire family dead, his mate, his children, his grandchildren. Everyone except one." Elena's eyes met mine. "You, 6-month-old Ela, hidden in a protection circle that your grandmother died creating. Kyle found you, but he was gravely injured, dying. He passed his bloodline's gift to his son Riker and made him swear to protect you, to find you when you came of age, to be there when you needed him. Riker is—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Your true mate," Marcus said, "chosen by the goddess herself, born from a bloodline that was meant to unite with yours. The bond you felt at the ceremony with Cade was false, manufactured. But what you felt with Riker that night, that was real. That was your souls recognizing each other." I sank back into the chair, overwhelmed. The twins kicked again, harder this time. And I felt a surge of warmth through the bond I'd been unconsciously suppressing, the bond that was trying to reach out to Riker wherever he was. "Where is he?" I asked. "If he's my mate, if he knows the truth, where has he been?" "Protecting you from a distance," Elena said. "Making sure you survived long enough to come into your power. If he'd claimed you too early, before you were ready, the same people who massacred your family would have struck. They've been watching, waiting for any sign that the Moonfire bloodline survived." "Who are they?" The question came out as a growl, my wolf surging forward with a protective fury I'd never felt before. "Who killed my family?" "The Shadow Council," Marcus said grimly. "A group of alpha families who seized power after the Moonfire massacre. They rule the wolf territories now. Enforce the alpha hierarchy, and they'll do anything to maintain control. Your bloodline represents everything they destroyed. A different way of living, a different power structure. If you reclaim your heritage, if your children grow up knowing what they are, it threatens everything the Shadow Council built." "And Cade's family?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "Alpha Magnus Blackthorn was one of the wolves who participated in the massacre," Elena said quietly. "He was young then, following orders from his own father, but he was there. He helped burn the Moonfire compound. And when he found out you'd survived, when he realized the Winters were hiding you in his pack, he made a choice. He helped them keep you secret, helped them suppress your nature, because he knew if the Shadow Council discovered you, they'd finish what they started. So he's not the enemy, I said slowly. He's complicated, Marcus corrected. He did terrible things, but he's also been protecting you in his own way. The question is, what will he do now that you've disappeared? Now that Cade knows about your pregnancy? As if summoned by the question, my phone, which I'd kept turned off for weeks, suddenly buzzed in my backpack. I'd forgotten I even had it. I pulled it out and stared at the screen. 15 missed calls from unknown numbers, dozens of text messages, and one voicemail left just an hour ago from a number I recognized. Cade. My finger hovered over the play button. Don't, Elena warned. Whatever he says, whatever he promises, you can't trust him. Not yet. Not until you know the full truth of what he's been told, what his father has planned. But I couldn't stop myself. I pressed play. Cade's voice filled the room, rough with an emotion I'd never heard from him before. Desperation. Isla, if you're hearing this, please listen. I know you have every reason to hate me. I know what I did at the ceremony was unforgivable. But I'm begging you, call me back. Let me explain. My father lied to me. He manipulated both of us. That mate bond we felt, it wasn't real. Someone tampered with the ceremony, and now I know. I know what you are. I know about the Moonfire bloodline. I know about the twins. There was a pause, and then his voice dropped lower, more urgent. They're coming for you, Isla. The Shadow Council knows you're alive. They know you're pregnant with Moonfire heirs. My father tried to stop them, but he can't control them anymore. They're sending hunters, and they won't stop until you and those babies are dead. The voicemail ended. The room was silent except for the sound of my racing heart. How did he find out? I whispered. Someone told him, Marcus said. Someone who wanted him to know. The question is why? Before anyone could answer, the wards around the safe house suddenly flared to life. Bright silver light erupted from every window and doorway, and a howl echoed in the distance. Marcus was on his feet instantly, his easy demeanour gone. In its place was something harder, more dangerous. They found us. How? I demanded. You said the wards protect against direct magical tracking, Elena said, already moving toward the door. But if someone close to you is nearby, someone your wolf recognizes as Pack, they can follow the residual bond. Cade. He traced me through whatever remained of that false mate bond. Another howl, closer this time. Then another, and another. That's not Cade's pack, Marcus said, his voice tight. That's Shadow Council hunters, professional killers. How many? I asked. At least a dozen. He pulled a silver blade from beneath his jacket, a weapon that hummed with the same protective magic as his wards. We need to get you out of here now. I can't run any more, I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I'm tired of running, tired of being weak, tired of letting other people control my life. Isla, Marcus started. No. I stood up, and power flooded through me. Real power. Not the suppressed, dampened thing I'd felt my entire life. This was wild and fierce and ancient. My wolf rose inside me, and for the first time ever, she didn't feel small or broken or wrong. She felt perfect. They want the last Moonfire heir? I said, and my eyes flashed gold. Not amber, not the muddy brown they'd always been, but pure, blazing gold. Let them come. The twins kicked in response, their heartbeat synchronizing with mine, and I felt it. The bond I'd been unconsciously suppressing, reaching out like a golden thread through the darkness, reaching for Riker. And somewhere miles away I felt him respond. I'm coming, his voice whispered through the bond. Hold on, Isla. I'm coming. The front door exploded inward. A massive grey wolf burst through, its eyes fixed on me with a hunger that promised death. Behind it, more wolves poured into the safe house, their snarls filling the air. Marcus and Elena, moved to intercept them. But I knew they couldn't hold them all off. There were too many. I closed my eyes and reached for the power I'd spent my whole life denying. When I opened them again, silver light blazed from my skin. The twins' heartbeats thundered in my chest like war drums, and my wolf, my true wolf, surged forward with a roar that shook the entire house. The Moonfire bloodline wasn't extinct, and it was done hiding. Chapter 4. When the door to Marcus's safe house opened and the most powerful alpha in all territories walked through, his eyes the exact shade of gold I'd seen flash in my memories, a distinctive scar running along his right hand. I understood why everyone had been so afraid. My mate wasn't just any wolf, he was Alpha King Theron Nightshade, and I'd been carrying his heirs. Time stopped. The Shadow Council hunters that had been circling, snarling, ready to tear me apart, suddenly froze. Every single one of them dropped to the ground in submission, their wolves recognizing the authority that had just entered the room. Even Marcus and Elena stepped back, their heads bowed in respect. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Theron stood in the doorway like he'd been carved from stone and fury. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that blocked out the light behind him. Dark hair fell to his collar, and his face was all sharp angles and controlled violence. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than everything I'd ever owned, but it was his eyes that held me captive. Golden. Like mine had become, like the twins would be, and they were fixed on me with an intensity that made my wolf whimper and surge forward at the same time. "Leave," Theron said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute command. "All of you, now." The hunters scrambled for the door, tripping over themselves in their haste to obey. Within seconds, the safe house was empty except for Theron, Marcus, Elena, and me. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, his usual easy demeanor completely gone. "We weren't expecting—" "I told you to keep her safe," Theron interrupted, his eyes never leaving mine. "I told you to make sure nothing touched her, and yet I felt her fear through our bond from 300 miles away. I felt her pain. I felt her preparing to fight." "She didn't know," Marcus said quickly. "We were just explaining about the Moonfire bloodline, about her heritage, and then the hunters arrived before we could get out. It wasn't a request." Marcus and Elena exchanged glances, then quickly left through the back door. The protective wards shimmered back into place behind them, sealing Theron and me alone in the suddenly too small room. "You," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. "You're Riker." Riker Moonborn was the name I used when I needed to move through territories unnoticed, Theron said, finally moving closer. Each step was measured, controlled, like he was approaching a frightened animal. "My full name is Theron Riker Nightshade, Alpha King of the North American Territories, and your fated mate." My hand went to my stomach protectively. The twins kicked, responding to their father's presence, and warmth flooded through the bond I'd been unconsciously suppressing for weeks. "Why didn't you tell me?" The anger came suddenly, hot and overwhelming. "At the ceremony, when you found me at the border, you could have explained everything. Instead, you let me run. Let me spend weeks terrified and alone, thinking I was going to die out here. Because you weren't ready," Theron said simply. "And because my enemies were watching you, waiting to see if you'd lead them to other Moonfire survivors. If I'd claimed you publicly, if I'd taken you under my protection before removing the threats, they would have killed you the moment I looked away. So you just left me? I put Marcus in position to intercept you. I had wolves tracking you every mile of your journey, keeping you safe without you knowing. I made sure you had everything you needed." He paused. "And I put money in your mother's locket, enough to keep you comfortable for years. You just haven't found it yet." My hand went to the locket at my throat. I'd never thought to check for a hidden compartment beyond the portrait. "The night of the pre-ceremony celebration," I said, memories flooding back now that he was standing in front of me. "You were there. You found me. You were drugged," Theron said, and something dark flickered in his eyes. Someone had laced the ceremonial wine with a potion designed to create false mate bonds. To manipulate the ceremony results, I felt our true bond snap into place the moment I entered the neutral territory, and I tracked you to the celebration. When I found you, his jaw clenched, you were vulnerable, disoriented. My wolf took over. I should have just taken you to safety, but the bond was too strong. I couldn't leave you. More memories surfaced, his hands on my skin, his voice whispering promises, the overwhelming sense of rightness, of finally being exactly where I belonged. You bit me, I said quietly, at the base of my spine. A claim mark, Theron confirmed, hidden where no one would see it. It marks you as mine, tells any wolf with the sense to look that you're under my protection. It's also what's been feeding you strength these past weeks, keeping you alive when the pregnancy should have killed you. I turned away from him, trying to process everything. You let Cade reject me. You watched it happen. I arrived just as it started, Theron said, and for the first time I heard real emotion in his voice, regret. I was going to stop it, going to challenge him right there. But then I saw the way he looked at you, heard the words he was saying, and I realized something. He'd been manipulated too. Someone had fed him false information about you, poisoned him against you. If I'd intervened, if I'd claimed you right then, it would have started a war. And in that chaos, my enemies would have killed you. So you let him break me instead. No. Theron moved faster than I could track, suddenly in front of me, his hand gentle but firm, as he tilted my chin up to meet his eyes. I let him reveal who he truly was. I let him show you that he wasn't worthy of you, because you needed to know, Isla. You needed to see that the bond you felt with him was false, manufactured. If I'd claimed you before you understood that, you would have spent the rest of your life wondering if you'd made the right choice. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. It hurt. It still hurts. I know, Theron said softly. I felt every second of your pain through our bond. It nearly killed me to stand there and not intervene. But I had to trust that you were strong enough to survive it, that you were strong enough to find your way to safety, to Marcus, to the truth. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped despite my best efforts. And you were. You survived everything they threw at you. You're still here, still fighting. The gentleness in his touch, the reverence in his voice, it undid something inside me. I'd spent my entire life being told I was weak, worthless, an omega who couldn't protect herself. But Theron looked at me like I was precious, powerful, like I was exactly what he'd been searching for. Tell me the rest, I said. Tell me everything. Theron nodded and stepped back, giving me space. 25 years ago, I was supposed to bond with your mother. I blinked. What? Princess Arya Moonfire, Theron said, your biological mother. We were betrothed from childhood, an alliance between the Nightshade royal line and the Moonfire bloodline. It would have created the most powerful wolf dynasty in history. But there was a problem. The Council of Alphas, the ones who controlled the territories, saw our union as a threat. If we bonded, if we had children, the alpha hierarchy they'd built their power on would crumble. We would have been unstoppable. He moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. They orchestrated the massacre, made it look like a territorial dispute, a pack war that got out of control. My parents died protecting your family. I was away, attending a council meeting that I now realize was designed to get me out of the way. By the time I returned, everyone was dead. The Moonfire compound was burned to the ground. Your mother, your grandmother, your entire family, gone. But I survived, I said quietly. You survived because your grandmother, Lyra Moonfire, used the last of her power to hide you. She created a protection circle so strong that even I couldn't sense you through it. The Winters family found you hours later, and they did what they thought was right. They hid you, raised you as an Omega, suppressed your true nature. Theron turned back to me. For years I thought the Moonfire bloodline was extinct. I spent decades consolidating power, removing the alphas who'd participated in the massacre, waiting for the right moment to expose those who remained. And then, 3 weeks ago, I felt it, the mate bond, snapping into place like lightning. But I was supposed to bond with my mother, I said, trying to understand. How could you be my mate if— Because you're not Arya's daughter, Theron said gently. You're her niece. Arya died in the massacre, but her sister, your mother, Elena Moonfire, survived long enough to give birth to you. She was pregnant during the attack, and she used her last breath to make sure you lived. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My mother died bringing you into the world, Theron finished. She was my mate's sister, but she was also special. She carried a recessive gene, one that only shows up once every few generations. When she bonded with your father, a moon-born wolf named Kale, their bloodlines mixed in a way that created something new, something the moon goddess herself chose. Me, I whispered. You, Theron confirmed. You carry both bloodlines, Isla, Moonfire and Moonborn. You're the bridge between the old world and the new. And when I felt our bond form, I knew. The goddess hadn't given me your aunt. She'd been waiting to give me you. I sank into the nearest chair, overwhelmed. The twins are the first Moonfire Nightshade heirs in history, Theron said. They'll be more powerful than any wolf alive. They'll be able to do things we can only imagine, and that makes them targets for every alpha who wants to control the future of our kind. That's why Drake Frost sent the hunters, I said, pieces falling into place. He wants them dead before they're born. Drake orchestrated the original massacre, Theron said, his voice hard. He's the last remaining member of the conspiracy that I haven't been able to touch. He's too well connected, too careful, but now he's made a mistake. He's shown his hand by sending hunters after you, and that gives me the evidence I need to move against him. What do you want me to do? I asked. Theron crossed the room and knelt in front of me, bringing himself to my level. I want you to choose. You can stay hidden, raise our children in safety, and I'll handle Drake and his allies. Or— He took my hand, his scarred fingers intertwining with mine. You can return to the supernatural world as my mate and Lunar Queen. Help me expose the conspiracy. Reclaim your family's legacy. Show every Omega who's ever been told they're worthless that they're wrong. Before I could answer, the wards around the safe house flared again. Different this time. Not an attack, but a warning. Someone was approaching. Someone the wards recognized, but didn't trust. Theron was on his feet instantly, his body positioned between me and the door. The door burst open. Cade Blackthorn stood there, breathing hard, his clothes torn and dirty like he'd been running for miles. His eyes found mine immediately, and the pain in them was so raw it made my chest ache. Isla, he said. Thank God. I thought I was too late. Theron's growl filled the room, a sound so deep and dangerous it made the walls shake. You have 3 seconds to explain why you're here before I tear you apart. I'm here to help, Cade said, his eyes never leaving mine. Drake is coming. He's bringing an elite kill squad. 20 wolves, all trained assassins. They'll be here within the hour. He finally looked at Theron, and even I could see him force himself not to submit to the Alpha King's presence. I brought information about his plan. And I want to make amends by helping protect her. You rejected her, Theron said coldly. You humiliated her in front of 3 packs. You have no right to be here. I know, Cade said, and his voice cracked. I know what I did, but my father lied to me. He manipulated me into rejecting her because he knew what she was, knew that if we bonded, it would interfere with— He gestured at Theron. With this. With the truth. I was a fool. I believed him when he told me she was weak, that she'd be a liability, but I was wrong. And now I want to fix it. You can't fix this, I said, standing up. The twins kicked hard, responding to my anger. You can't take back what you did to me. You can't undo the humiliation, the pain, the— I know, Cade interrupted, but I can try. I can fight for you now, even if you never forgive me. Please, Isla. Let me do this one thing right. The two alphas stood on opposite sides of the room, both staring at me, waiting for my decision. Cade, who'd broken me. Theron, who'd hidden from me. And me, caught in the middle, carrying twins who were already changing everything. I closed my eyes and reached for my wolf. She rose immediately, no longer suppressed, no longer weak. Power flooded through me, silver and gold light that made my skin glow, that made the air around me shimmer. When I opened my eyes, they were blazing gold. I'm done choosing between alphas who think they know what's best for me, I said. And my voice carried a resonance it had never had before. I'm done being the weak Omega who needs protection. I'm done running. The twins' heartbeats synchronized with mine, and suddenly I felt it, their power flowing into me, amplifying my strength. They weren't even born yet, but they were already protecting their mother, already making sure I could stand against any threat. Magic exploded from me in a wave that knocked both Cade and Theron back a step. I'm a Moonfire heir, I continued, and now silver light joined the gold, swirling around me like a living thing. I'm the Alpha King's mate. I'm carrying the next generation of lunar wolves, and I'm done letting other people decide what my life should look like. My wolf surged forward, and for the first time in my life, I let her come completely free. The shift happened in seconds, faster than should be possible. My bones reformed without pain. My muscles stretched and strengthened. And when the transformation completed, I stood on 4 legs in a form I'd never achieved before. I was huge. Larger than any Omega wolf had a right to be. My fur was silver and gold, shimmering in the dim light, and my eyes blazed with power that made even Theron take a step back. Through the bond, I felt his shock, his awe, his absolute certainty that I was exactly what he'd been waiting for. I shifted back, standing naked for a moment before Theron immediately shrugged off his jacket and wrapped it around me. The gesture was protective, possessive, and somehow exactly what I needed. I'm not staying hidden, I said, looking at Theron. I'm not raising our children in the shadows, always afraid, always running. If Drake wants war, we'll give him war, but we'll do it together. And when it's over, every Omega in every pack is going to know that they're not worthless, that they never were. Theron's eyes gleamed with fierce pride. My Lunar Queen. I turned to Cade. You want to make amends? Then you'll help us destroy Drake and everyone who participated in the massacre. You'll use your position in Silver Moon to gather evidence, and when this is over, you'll help me rebuild the pack system into something better, something that doesn't rely on Omegas being treated as lesser. Cade bowed his head. Whatever you need. Good, I said. Because Drake's kill squad will be here soon, and I'm done running from people who think I'm easy prey. The twins kicked again, harder this time, and power surged through me, stronger than before, wilder. The room filled with silver and gold light, and I saw shock register on Theron's face. Isla, he said carefully, what you're feeling right now, that's not just your power. The twins are awake. They're channeling their strength through you. I know, I said and smiled, and they're telling me we're going to win. Through the window, I saw lights approaching in the distance. Vehicles. Lots of them. Drake's kill squad had arrived. It's time, Mama, I said, and my voice carried the weight of generations of Moonfire power. It's time to take back everything they stole from my family and make them answer for every Omega they've ever made feel worthless. Theron moved to my side, his hand finding mine. Cade positioned himself at the door, ready to fight. And I stood there, the last Moonfire heir, the Alpha King's mate, carrying twins who would change the world, and prepared to face the enemies who'd thought they'd destroyed my bloodline. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. The Moonfire bloodline wasn't extinct. It was just getting started. Epilogue, 6 months later. The nursery in the Nightshade Royal Palace was bathed in silver moonlight, and I stood at the window, gently rocking my daughter while her brother slept peacefully in his crib nearby. Luna. That's what we'd named her. Luna Moonfire Nightshade, with her father's golden eyes and a spirit that burned bright even at 3 months old. Her brother Kyle, named after my grandfather, had my silver-streaked dark hair and a calm disposition that balanced his sister's fierce energy perfectly. "Can't sleep?" Theron's voice came from the doorway, warm and gentle in the quiet of the night. I turned to smile at him. Luna was fussy. I think she sensed my restlessness. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around us both, his chin resting on top of my head. "Big day tomorrow." Tomorrow. The day everything would change again, but this time, for the better. After the battle at Marcus's safe house, everything had happened quickly. Drake's kill squad had been no match for an Alpha King, a reformed Alpha seeking redemption, and a Moonfire heir who'd finally come into her full power. We'd captured Drake alive, and he'd confessed everything. The massacre, the conspiracy, the decades of manipulation. The evidence had been overwhelming. The Shadow Council had fallen. Every Alpha involved in the original massacre had been stripped of their titles and exiled. And now, tomorrow, we would announce the new system, one that honoured the old Moonfire ways while building something better for the future. "Are you nervous?" Theron asked, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Terrified," I admitted. "What if they don't accept the changes?" "What if—" "They will," he interrupted gently, "because you're going to show them a better way. You already have." I looked down at Luna, who'd finally fallen asleep in my arms, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger. In the crib, Kyle made a soft sound in his sleep, and I felt that familiar surge of overwhelming love. These were my children, the next generation of Luna wolves, and they would grow up in a world where no wolf was ever called worthless because of their rank. A soft knock at the door made us both turn. Marcus poked his head in, his expression apologetic. "Sorry to interrupt, but you have visitors who insisted they couldn't wait until morning." I handed Luna to Theron and followed Marcus down the hallway, curious about who would visit so late. When we reached the main sitting room, I stopped in the doorway, surprised. My parents, the Winters, stood there looking uncomfortable and out of place in the elegant room. They'd aged in the months since I'd seen them, and something in my mother's eyes looked different. Softer. "Isla," my father said, and his voice cracked on my name. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. These were the people who'd hidden my true nature, who'd let me suffer, who'd turned away when Cade rejected me. But they were also the people who'd kept me alive, who'd protected me the only way they knew how. "Why are you here?" I asked, finally. My mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "To apologize, to beg your forgiveness. We did terrible things to you, Isla. We convinced ourselves it was to keep you safe, but we were also afraid of what you were, what you might become. And we let that fear hurt you in ways we can never take back. We heard about tomorrow's announcement," my father added, "about the new system you're implementing. No more Omega designation, no more hierarchy based on strength alone. And we wanted you to know—" He swallowed hard. "We're proud of you, proud of who you've become despite everything we did wrong." The words I'd waited my entire childhood to hear, but now, standing here as Luna Queen, as a mother, as someone who'd found her true strength, I realized I didn't need them anymore. I'd stopped needing their approval the moment I'd embraced who I really was. But I could still choose to forgive them. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "You let me believe I was worthless for 21 years. That's not something I can forget." "We know," my mother whispered. "But you also saved my life," I continued. "You kept me hidden when revealing the truth would have gotten me killed. You made hard choices even if they weren't the right ones. I took a breath. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. And because my children deserve to know their grandparents. All of them, including the ones who made mistakes. My mother's sob was the only sound in the room for a long moment. Then she rushed forward and pulled me into a hug, the first real embrace she'd ever given me. My father joined us, and for the first time in my life, I felt what family was supposed to feel like. When they finally left, promising to attend tomorrow's ceremony, I found Theron waiting in the hallway. He pulled me close without a word, understanding that I needed his strength right now. That was incredibly gracious, he said. It was incredibly hard, I corrected, but it was right. For me, for the twins, for the future we're trying to build. He kissed me softly. Have I mentioned lately that you're going to be an amazing Lunar Queen? Not in the last hour, I teased. Then I'm falling down on the job. He kissed me again, deeper this time. You're amazing, Isla Moonfire Nightshade. You took everything they threw at you and turned it into something beautiful. You're going to change the world. We're going to change the world, I corrected. The next morning, packs from every territory gathered in the ceremonial grounds outside the palace. Thousands of wolves, all waiting to hear what the new Lunar Queen had to say. I stood on the raised platform, Theron beside me, our twins in the arms of trusted guards nearby. I wore a silver gown that caught the morning light, and the crown of the Moonfire bloodline, recovered from the ruins of the old compound, rested on my head. I was terrified, but I was ready. For too long, I began, my voice carrying across the crowd. We've lived in a system that told us our worth was determined by our strength, our rank, our ability to dominate others. For too long, wolves have been classified as alphas, betas, and omegas, with omegas treated as lesser, as weak, as disposable. I saw nods in the crowd, saw omega standing a little straighter. I know what it's like to be called worthless. I spent 21 years being told I was too weak, too broken, too omega to matter, and I believed it, until I discovered the truth, that I was never an omega at all. I was Moonfire. I was powerful. I was exactly what I was meant to be. I paused, letting the words sink in. But here's what I realized. It shouldn't have mattered. Whether I was Moonfire or Omega or anything else, I deserved to be treated with dignity, with respect, with kindness, and so does every wolf in every pack. The crowd was completely silent now. So today, we're changing the system. Effective immediately, there are no more Omega designations. No more hierarchy based solely on strength. Instead, we return to the old ways, the Moonfire ways, where every wolf is valued for their unique gifts, where strength is measured not just in physical power, but in wisdom, compassion, creativity, and heart. I saw shock ripple through the crowd, saw some alphas looking angry, others thoughtful. This won't be easy, I continued. Change never is, but it's necessary. Because every Omega who's ever been made to feel worthless deserves better. Every wolf who's been bullied or dismissed or told they don't matter deserves to know the truth, that they do matter, that they always have. A voice rose from the crowd, a young woman, barely out of her teens, with the bearing of someone who'd spent her life being pushed down. What if the alphas don't accept this? What if they fight back? I smiled. Then we fight harder. Because this isn't just about changing laws or restructuring packs. This is about changing hearts. And I believe in us. I believe we can build something better. Theron stepped forward, his hand finding mine. The Nightshade throne supports these changes fully. Any alpha who refuses to implement them will answer to me directly. And trust me, you don't want that. His tone was light, but the threat was clear. One by one, alphas in the crowd began to kneel, not in submission, but in acceptance, in support. And then I saw him, Cade, standing with the Silver Moon delegation. He met my eyes and slowly, deliberately, knelt as well. He'd kept his promise. He'd helped us gather evidence against Drake, had testified at the trial, and had spent the last months working to reform Silvermoon Pack from within. His father, Magnus, had stepped down as Alpha, and Cade had taken his place with a mission to make things right. We'd never be friends. The hurt ran too deep, but we'd found a way to work together for something bigger than ourselves. The ceremony concluded with a traditional moonfire blessing, one that hadn't been performed in 25 years. As the words were spoken, as the moon's light seemed to intensify around us, I felt it, the shift in the world, the beginning of something new. That night I found Marcus in the palace library, surrounded by books as usual. "Thank you," I said, sitting beside him, "for everything. For saving me that day outside the cafe. For protecting me. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Marcus smiled. "I had a feeling about you from the moment I found you. Plus Theron would have killed me if I'd let anything happen to his mate." "Still," I insisted, "you didn't have to do any of it. You risk your life running that safe house, helping refugees, and you never ask for anything in return." "Helping people like you is all the payment I need," Marcus said. "Watching you go from that terrified Omega collapsing on the street to the Lunar Queen who just changed the world, that's worth everything." I hugged him. "This man who'd become like family. You'll always have a place here. Always." "I know," he said, "but I think I'll stick with the safe house. There are more wolves out there who need help. More Islers waiting to discover they're stronger than they think." Later, in the quiet of our chambers, I stood at the window, watching the moon rise over the palace grounds. Theron came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, and we stood there together in comfortable silence. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently?" I asked. "If you'd arrived at the ceremony earlier, if Cade had accepted me?" "Every day," Theron admitted. "But then I remember that every choice, every pain, every moment of suffering led us here, to this, to our children, to the future we're building together. And I can't regret that. Even the parts where I was running for my life? Especially those parts," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "They showed me how strong you are, how brave, how perfectly suited to be my mate and my queen." I turned in his arms to face him. "I love you. I don't think I've said that enough." "You show me every day," Theron said, cupping my face in his hands. "Every time you fight for what's right, every time you hold our children, every time you choose hope over fear. That's love, Isla. And it's more than I ever dreamed of finding." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. From the nursery, one of the twins started crying, Luna, most likely, demanding attention. We broke apart with matching smiles. "Your turn," I teased. "Our turn," Theron corrected, taking my hand. We walked to the nursery together, this Alpha King and his Omega-turned Lunar Queen, ready to comfort their children and face whatever tomorrow would bring. Because we'd learned the most important lesson of all, strength that wasn't about dominance or power or rank. It was about love, about family, about standing up for what was right even when the world told you to stay down. And as I picked up my crying daughter, as Theron gently rocked our son, as moonlight spilled through the windows and bathed us all in silver light, I knew with absolute certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to be. The Moonfire bloodline had risen from the ashes, and we were just getting started. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.